Detroit, April 18th, 1972, 11:15 p.m. Frank Matthews walking out of Giovanni's restaurant after a business meeting. The street is quiet, streetlights casting long shadows. Next to him, Marcus, Big Marc Johnson, his bodyguard. 32, former Marine, worked for Matthews 18 months. They're walking toward the Cadillac across the street. The night air is warm. Everything feels normal. In 8 seconds, everything will change. In 8 minutes, Matthews will do something men still talk about 50 years later. This is the story of loyalty, sacrifice, and what happens when someone saves your life. Big Marc wasn't just muscle. Decorated Marine, 2 tours in Vietnam, Purple Heart recipient, expert marksman. But more importantly, intelligent, disciplined, absolutely loyal. Matthews hired him in October 1970. For 18 months, Big Marc was Matthews's shadow. 3 steps behind, eyes constantly scanning, hand always near his weapon. They developed something beyond employer and employee. They developed respect. Matthews paid well, $2,000 weekly, plus bonuses. But it wasn't about money. Big Marc believed in Matthews, a black man controlling his own empire, answering to nobody. That April night, Matthews met with distributors moving product through Michigan, Ohio, and Canada. The meeting was at Giovanni's, a neutral location both sides agreed on. Meeting went well, territories discussed, money counted. At 11:12 p.m., Matthews walked out. Big Marc followed 3 steps behind. Standard procedure. But across the street, in a parked van with tinted windows, 2 hired guns from Chicago had waited 3 hours. Contract? $50,000 to kill Matthews publicly. Send a message to anyone else thinking about operating independently. The plan? Wait for Matthews in the open, slide van door, fire, 2 rifles, center mass. Matthews dead before hitting ground. Simple, clean, effective. At 11:15 p.m., Matthews stepped off the curb toward his Cadillac parked 40 feet away. Big Marc followed 3 steps behind. The van's engine started. Big Marc saw something. Headlights turning on. Van door sliding open. Rifle barrel emerging, aiming directly at Matthews. Shooter's finger moving toward trigger. Big Marc had 1 second to decide. He could shout warning, but give shooter time to adjust aim. Could draw his weapon, but too late. Could push Matthews down, but risky. Matthews might fall wrong, still get hit. Big Marc made a different choice, the only choice guaranteeing Matthews would live. He stepped directly in front of Matthews, covering him completely with his own body. He became the shield. 2 shots fired. Sound echoed down the street like thunder. Both bullets hit Big Marc. First caught his left shoulder, spinning him slightly. Second hit chest below collarbone, missing heart by 3 inches. The impact should have dropped him instantly. But Big Marc didn't fall. Not yet. Even with 2 bullets in him, he stayed standing. His right hand pulled his weapon. Other hand pushed Matthews back toward restaurant. He fired 4 shots at the van. Shooters ducked, panicked, hadn't expected return fire. Van screeched away, door still open, tires smoking. Only then did Big Marc collapse, drop to knees, then onto side. Blood spreading across white shirt, dark and fast. The pavement beneath him turning black with blood. Matthews's men rushed out, weapons drawn. But van was gone. Matthews dropped to his knees next to Marc. "Marc, stay with me." Big Marc's eyes open but unfocused. Shock setting in. Blood pooling beneath him. Wait, don't miss this detail. What Matthews did in the next 8 minutes revealed who he really was. Matthews didn't delegate. He pressed his own hands against Big Marc's wounds. His suit jacket pressed against chest wound. His white shirt turned red. "Get the car. Hospital now." Detroit Receiving Hospital, 8 minutes away. They lifted Big Marc into the Cadillac's back seat. Matthews climbed in, cradling Marc's head in his lap, maintaining pressure on wounds. Blood everywhere. Big Marc fading, eyes closing. Matthews talked the entire 8-minute drive, his voice the only sound in the car besides the engine screaming. Everyone in that car said they'd never heard his voice like that. Not commanding, not strategic, just human, just desperate. Marc, look at me. Keep your eyes open. You're my brother. You saved my life. I got you. I got you. Stay with me. We're almost there. You're gonna make it. You hear me? That's an order, Marine. You don't get to die. Not for me. Not tonight. Matthews's voice breaking, hands shaking but pressing wounds. Big Marc's blood soaking through everything. The driver running every red light, horn blaring, 80 miles per hour on surface streets. They reached Detroit Receiving at 11:23 p.m. Matthews carried Big Marc through emergency doors himself, wouldn't let anyone else touch him. Gunshot wounds. 2. Chest and shoulder, he's losing blood. Nurses rushed over with gurney. Matthews laid Big Marc down gently, like placing something precious. Save him, Matthews said to doctors. Not request. Command. But his eyes showed something else. Please. Doctors rushed Big Marc into surgery. Matthews stood in middle of emergency room, covered in blood, his shirt, pants, hands, face. One of his men tried to hand him towel. Matthews didn't take it. He walked to waiting room, sat in plastic chair, didn't move for 6 hours. His men offered clean clothes. He refused. Food. Refused. To leave and let them handle it. He looked at them like they were insane. I'm not leaving until I know he's alive. So Frank Matthews sat in that waiting room, covered in Big Marc's blood, while his bodyguard fought for life in surgery. Other people recognized him, whispered, pointed, stared. Matthews didn't care. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, dried blood cracking on his skin, waiting. At 5:17 a.m., surgeon came out. Matthews stood immediately. He's alive, doctor said. Both bullets removed. Shoulder will heal fine. Chest shot was close. Another inch, and we would have lost him. But he's stable, strong. He's going to make it. Matthews closed his eyes, took a breath. Can I see him? Doctor nodded. Big Marc was unconscious, hooked to machines, heavily bandaged. Matthews stood by the bed for a long time, just looking at him. The steady beep of monitors, the rise and fall of Marc's chest. He was alive. The relief hit Matthews like a physical weightlifting. Then Matthews did something none of his men had ever seen. Frank Matthews cried, not sobbing, just silent tears running down his face, cutting lines through dried blood. One associate who saw it later said, I'd seen Frank face down the mafia. I'd seen him deal with DEA raids. I'd seen him handle betrayals and threats and million-dollar deals. But I'd never seen him show emotion like that. It wasn't weakness. It was something deeper. It was love. But here's what made grown men cry. 3 days later, when Marc woke up and could talk, Matthews visited. Big Marc tried apologizing. Boss, I'm sorry. I should have seen them sooner. Should have. Matthews cut him off. Marc, you saved my life. You stepped in front of bullets meant for me. You think you need to apologize? Big Marc's eyes filled with tears. I just did my job. Matthews shook his head. No, you did more than that. Then Matthews told him what he decided. First, every medical expense, surgery, hospital, medications, therapy, everything, Matthews paid cash, paid it all personally. Second, Marc's family, wife, 2 kids. Matthews set up trust fund, $500,000, guaranteed income for life. Your family will never worry about money, ever. Third, Matthews retired Big Marc immediately, with full pension. Marc, you gave me my life. Now I'm giving you yours back. You're done. No more bodyguard work, no more risk, no more looking over your shoulder. You're going to watch your kids grow up, grow old with your wife. You earned that. You earned peace. Matthews handed Marc an envelope. Inside, $500,000 cash. This is for you, not your family fund. This is yours. Start a business, buy a house, travel the world, whatever you want. You're free. Big Marc cried. This former Marine who'd survived Vietnam and took 2 bullets without falling broke down. Why? Matthews looked at him. Because you're my brother. And brothers take care of each other. The men there, when Matthews said that, 5 trusted associates, all cried too. One later said, Frank could have given Marc a bonus and moved on. That's what most bosses would do. But Frank gave him a life. That's rare. Marcus Johnson lived to 74. Never worked drug trade again. Opened auto repair shop in Detroit. Raised his kids. Saw his grandchildren born. He lived a quiet, peaceful life. Never spoke publicly about Frank Matthews. When reporters asked about that 1972 night, he always said the same thing. That's private. That's between me and Frank. But I'll tell you this. Frank Matthews was the best man I ever worked for. And if I had to do it again, step in front of those bullets, I would, without hesitation. This is what people miss about Frank Matthews. They see the kingpin who outsmarted the mafia and FBI, who vanished with 20 million. But they miss this. Matthews understood loyalty, sacrifice, that some people are worth more than money or power. When someone gives you your life, you give them theirs. That's not business. That's humanity. So remember this. April 18th, 1972, 11:15 p.m., Detroit. A bodyguard named Marcus Johnson stepped in front of 2 bullets to save Frank Matthews' life. And Frank Matthews responded by giving Marcus Johnson something more valuable than any amount of money: freedom, security, and peace. The men who saw Matthews crying in that hospital waiting room, covered in blood, waiting to know if his friend would live, they saw who Frank Matthews really was. Not just a kingpin. A man who understood that real power isn't about control. It's about loyalty. It's about gratitude. It's about crying for someone who was willing to die for you. If Frank Matthews taught us anything, it's that real power comes from independence, from making your own choices, from refusing to follow someone else's rules. This channel exists for the same reason: to tell stories the mainstream won't tell, to show you the truth behind the legends, to give you the real history, not the sanitized version. Frank Matthews disappeared in 1973, but his story isn't over. There are dozens of untold stories about this man, stories that reveal who he really was, what he really did, and why his legend still matters 50 years later. If you want to hear those stories, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because every week we're releasing another chapter in the Frank Matthews legend that you've never heard before. The night he refused $5 million from the mafia, the bodyguard who took a bullet for him, the last phone call before he vanished, the cop who tried to arrest him, the French supplier who tested him. These stories exist. They're documented. They're real. And we're telling every single one of them. Don't let YouTube's algorithm decide if you see these videos. Subscribe, hit the bell, and join the thousands of people who believe some legends deserve to be remembered. Frank Matthews, the Untold Legend. Subscribe now.